Welcome back, everyone, to the Dhama Acharya Seminar Series.
Good.
Lesson 4. I told Yogendra Prabhu this is my favorite lesson. Actually, it's my favorite ending. And you'll see why. You'll see why when it ends. After the last slide, there's nothing more to say. It's so good. Okay, you see the motif has changed from blue to pink. We're going to launch fearlessly into the Abhidheya section of the seminar. Lesson 4, his mission's roots. In the Sambandha lessons, we deepened our understanding of Srila Prabhupada's relationship with us as our founder Acharya. Now in the Abhidheya phase of our journey, we will explore how each of us can develop that relationship by deepening our commitment to Srila Prabhupada's mission. In this lesson, we'll trace his mission's origin and development in India before it manifested in the West. So roughly, in terms of the Lilamrita, it's like a lifetime of preparation. So, okay. Lesson 4, his mission's roots. There's Srila Prabhupada honoring Prasad in his rooms at the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan, gazing upon Srila Rupa Goswami's Samadhi tomb in 1972. 10 years before this photo was taken, Srila Prabhupada sat alone in his quarters, translating Srimad Bhagavatam and begging Srila Rupa Goswami for empowerment to execute Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's order to preach Krishna consciousness in the West. He had received the seed of that order during his first meeting with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in 1922. So we have this classic photo because in 1972 in the fall in Vrindavan, as you may know, Prabhupada gave a series of lectures which came to be known as the Nectar of Devotion lecture series. For weeks and weeks, Prabhupada lectured on Nectar of Devotion. He had received an order from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta at his initiation, just after his initiation, to study very thoroughly Nectar of Devotion, which Prabhupada did, and then gave us the Nectar of Devotion. And one fine day during the lecture series, Jamuna Devi Dasi, who was there, hearing very ardently from Prabhupada, as she always did, said to her dear friend Vishaka Devi Dasi, who was, as you know, is an expert world-class photographer, Vishaka, can you come to lunch today in Srila Prabhupada's quarters? I'd like you to see what I'm seeing, and bring your camera. So at the appointed time, Vishaka came, and Prabhupada is actually posing for the picture there. If you read Jamuna's books, or Vishaka's 11 years book, Prabhupada very graciously, he's holding the first morsel of prasad, but he's gazing very intently out the window at Srila Rupa Goswami Samadhi. And Vishaka took a picture, and this version of the picture I got right from the archives, so it's really a good likeness, good image. So yes, Prabhupada had received the seed of that order during his first meeting with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in 1922. His mission seed. Some of these slides were enhanced by a bhakta in Brazil who had just read Prabhupada's life story in Portuguese and was so inspired when he heard that there was a seminar series about this from his good friend Lilananda in Alachua, who's from Brazil. So this devotee, this bhakta, he works for Coca-Cola Brazil, and his job is web designer. So he took some of the slides and he really upgraded them. And this is one of them. This is one of my favorites. His mission seed. So, as we know, Srila Prabhupada said, I was a devotee of Gandhi. I was following Gandhi. And I was disappointed with so many gurus and swamis. Of course, he was raised as a Gaudiya Vaishnava, but in his college years, he said, I put my deities in a box. And then later the deities spoke to him in the heart and said, take us out of this box. So, as we've heard from Srila Prabhupada, this is supposed to be a Acharya day, and Narendra Mullik, his friend, Prabhupada told us, as you probably know, I didn't want to go see this sadhu in Altadanga Junction number 1, which was the first address of the Gaudiya mission, Gaudiya Math. But my friend Naren, he dragged me. So as they were bowing down, right before they had even risen from their obeisances, because they knew etiquette, you bow to a sadhu, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta spoke. And what did he say? Let's hear it. I mean, roughly. Nagendra, you know what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said?
If you're educated young men, you should preach this Krishna consciousness in the Western world.
Right before Prabhupada had even risen from obeisances, he received the seed of the order. Of course, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was saying that to all educated-looking young men because he was trying to start his mission. But as Prabhupada told us later, he saw something in me which became more obvious later. So then, what did Abhaycharan Dev reply?
He replied that how is it possible for Western world or the world to accept this Indian culture while we're subordinate to the British Raj?
Yes, we are a captive nation. Who will listen to our Chaitanya's message? And that had been his focus, because Prabhupada said I was wearing khadi, I refused my diploma, we were boycotting all things British. But then, for the first time, he heard something beyond his attitude. What did Srila Bhaktisiddhanta reply to that?
He replied, Roughly, he replied that Lord Chaitanya's mission is beyond these material things, such as politics or various other things, and the world desperately needs it, and that should be the emphasis.
Yes. Krishna consciousness is too important to wait for a change in politics, which didn't come until 47. Finally, India got Swaraj. Their holy grail. They wanted, that was their be-all and end-all, just getting independence from Britain. It's too important to wait for a change in politics. It's the urgent need of every living being. So Prabhupada said he was struck with wonder. Let's see how that reads in the slides. Yugindra, you want to read that?
While the two young men were still rising and preparing to sit, before any preliminary formalities of conversation had begun, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta immediately said to them, "You are educated young men. Why don't you preach Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message throughout the whole world?"
Yeah. And then
Srila Prabhupada. I was from a Vaishnava family, so I could appreciate what he was preaching. Of course, he was speaking to everyone, but he found something in me. I was so much struck with wonder.
this is after the reply by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Here's a real sadhu, right? This is not some so-called sadhu. So much struck with wonder.
I could understand. Here is the proper person to give a real religious idea.
Yeah, and so on the way out, after the darshan, Narendranath Mullik, family friend, said, "So what did you think about it?" Because Prabhupada told us, all of my friends had met the sadhu, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, except me, because I wasn't interested in going to see sadhus after my bad experience. Growing up and see my father feeding all these so-called sadhus, and then them going outside and lighting up bidis, or even taking off their begging cloths. They were just professional beggars, they weren't really sadhus. So what did Prabhupada reply? Oh, he's wonderful. Yes, I met such a nice saintly person I have met. And then Prabhupada told us later, I accepted him as my spiritual master immediately. Not officially, but in my heart. How long did it take for Prabhupada to take initiation? 11. 1933, Allahabad. He's gone into a Diksha, and we'll see that. Because it was circumstantial. Prabhupada, well, we'll read now. But not officially, but in my heart. So sometimes people say that, oh, I don't need to take initiation, I accept Prabhupada in my heart. But that's a misuse of Prabhupada's expression. What did Prabhupada mean in the heart?
Shiksha.
Yeah, he actually, there was a transference of transcendental knowledge there. Immediately, Prabhupada had been following Gandhi. But as soon as he heard Siddhanta Saraswati's words, his allegiance, his heart, flew from Gandhi right to Siddhanta Saraswati. He was right. He was dry grass, as they say, right? His Krishna consciousness just blazed in Srila Bhakti Siddhanta's association. Now, Srila Prabhupada, he was a working man. Prabhupada told us also later, I wanted to join immediately. I wish I could have, but I was already married and I had a child, and it would have been injustice. He was dutiful. He was dharmic. He was pious. I mean, he's transcendental, but he knew he had to do the right thing. So there had been predictions, as you probably know, astrological, that he was supposed to be a rich person. And he was doing very well in the beginning with Dr. Kartik Chandra Bose's Bengal chemical. And so he wanted to join immediately, but he knew he couldn't do that full time. So Prabhupada thought, well, if I'm supposed to be a rich man, then let me become rich, and then when the family phase, the Grihastha phase, ashram has run its course, the children are grown, protecting the wife, I can take my accumulated wealth and I can do the mission. I'll have a whole lot of capital to do the mission. Of course, we know that Krishna had other plans, but that was Prabhupada's strategy. So in 1923, Prabhupada was doing so well that he decided he was going to start his own business, and he had the blessings of Dr. Bose. In 1923, Srila Prabhupada left his office manager job with a leading pharmaceutical company in Calcutta. Dr. Bose was actually the pioneer of pharmaceuticals in Bengal in those days. And moved his family to Allahabad to start his own business, Prayag Pharmacy. The seed of Srila Prabhupada's mission went with him. Quote, this is from Lilamrita. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta was often traveling, so Bhakti Siddhanta was also building up his business, Gaudiya mission, traveling and opening up mutts. And Prabhupada, he was sometimes traveling too, or at least very busy with his business. And Abhay was busy with his family and business, so to arrange another meeting was not possible at that moment. Yet from their first encounter, Abhay had considered Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati his spiritual master, and began to think of him always. I have met such a nice saintly person. Whenever possible, Abhay would seek out Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples, the members of the Gaudiya Math. And they, unquote, and then I say, and they would seek out Abhay, because the next thing Prabhupada told us was that in 1928, during the Kumbh Mela, a few Gaudiya Math sannyasis walked into Prabhupada's pharmacy, Prayag Pharmacy. And Prabhupada told us, I immediately recognized, yes, these are the people I met 6 years earlier. And there's the spirit, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta I consider my spiritual master. So I must help them. And sure enough, they were coming to him to ask for help. Let's see. Okay. So they said, Abhay Babu, we have heard you are a very nice Vaishnav and that you're a very good businessman. we would like to start a center in Allahabad. Can you help us? And so Prabhupada did. He gave him a lot of good contacts. He was very conscientious about his business, and he knew a lot of people in town. And so, with the help of Abhay Charan Dey, gradually they started building a congregation, and you'll see in a few slides, they started a temple. Yeah, that was in 28. And the next thing Prabhupada told us about was during Rajmandal Parikrama, 1932, which was, by then the Gaudiya mission was really, we'd say, cooking. It was really good, it was really on the rise. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he had a big Rajmandal Parikrama, and that's also the year they had a big display festival using the technology of the day. This is Siddhanta Saraswati. He was really, as you know, big on Yukta Vairagya, and people criticized him. Why is a sannyasi riding in cars and using technology? And he had all these diorama exhibits, and he even had things which were not directly Krishna conscious, but it would, Siddhanta Saraswati knew it would bring people in to lead them to the Krishna conscious exhibits. And today, for example, Indradumya Maharaj does this when he has his tents, and he has, in Poland. What to speak of Viva Cultura, his tour, his traveling troupe. He uses things which appear not to be. In fact, I have a friend who was with him in Knoxville, and they did a program there. And so somebody was criticizing Indradumya Maharaj that, what is this? You just have some sports or some yoga, and the way Indradumya Swami replied was, okay, and then they go to that tent, and then what do they do next? Oh, they go to this, and it all ended up with Krishna consciousness, because it was expertly progression. So Siddhanta Saraswati, he was doing the same thing. And let's see here. Okay, so there was a big Brajmandal Parikram, and by then Abhay Babu was really busy with his business, but he wanted to see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He actually hadn't seen him, in 10 years, just that 22 meeting. So he somehow broke away from his business for a couple of days, and he said he caught up to the party in Koshi, where Sridhar Maharaj was making an announcement just as he was coming in. And the announcement was, today's actually the last day that Guru Maharaj will be with us on the party. So he's giving us a choice. We can either go to see the nearby spectacular, it's a Sheshashayi Vishnu deity, big Vishnu deity, or we can stay and hear him speak. So practically everybody went to that Sheshashayi spectacular deity. But Prabhupada, as he told us, I thought, what will I see with this Sheshashayi? He's talking about Vishnu. Let me stay and hear Guru Maharaj. So he was practically the only grihastha who stayed. And as Prabhupada put it, sometimes I could follow what he was saying, and sometimes I couldn't. He was speaking in a very high philosophical way. Just a few sannyasis were there. But I love to hear him speak. And because I was serious about hearing, now I'm serious about speaking. So that was in 32. Let's see here. And then, I think it was one, Atulananda Brahmachari from the Gaudiya mission, told Abhay Babu that Guru Maharaj is coming, in 1933 this was, he's coming to Allahabad to launch our temple, because by then they were ready to have a temple, and with Prabhupada's help. He was a key player in that. So Atul said, actually Prabhupada requested, because Atul Ananda said that there's going to be initiations. So Abhay said, oh, I'd like to be initiated. So Atul said, let me ask Guru Maharaj. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta did accept him. Now the seed sprouts, there's a tulsi. And so let's read that. How about Madhavapri?
With folded palms, Abai looked up humbly at his spiritual master. He and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta were now face to face, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta recognized him and was visibly pleased to see him. He already knew him. Yes, he said, exchanging looks with Abai. He likes to hear. He does not go away. I have marked him. I will accept him as my disciple.
Yeah. So, as Prabhupada said, he saw something in me. I will accept him as my disciple. And then Prabhupada went from being a Bhaicharan Day to, what's the name?
Abhay Charanarvinda Das.
Right, a Bhaicharan Das, the one who was fearless at the lotus feet of Krishna. So that was Allahabad, 1933. 2 years later, in 1935, Prabhupada received 3 major blessings from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, each one rather prophetic. Actually, they became increasingly more prophetic. So it was 1935. Prabhupada, by then, he had moved, his family was still in Allahabad, but the business wasn't doing well. It actually collapsed under debt because he was so generous being a creditor that the people weren't paying him, and therefore he couldn't pay. He was getting his raw materials, his pharmaceuticals, from Dr. Bose in Calcutta, but he wasn't paying Dr. Bose after a while because he wasn't getting paid. So Dr. Bose, of course, trusted Abhay. He was the family doctor growing up. So he knew Abhay was honest, but he didn't know why Abhay wasn't able to pay his bills. So he just went to Allahabad, and he looked at the books, and he said, yes, I see you're in debt, because they're not paying you. So I think you're so far in debt, I think the only way that you're going to get out of debt is if I assume the debt and take over the business. Now, you won't have any more debt, but you won't have a business. He did leave him a little bit. So what Prabhupada did was, he left Radharani, his wife, and a couple of kids by then. Not leave for good, that was later, but he left them in Allahabad with just enough business to maintain, but not build. And Prabhupada and a brother of his went to Bombay, the big city, to try to see if they could drum up some business for manufacturing pharmaceuticals in Bombay and sell. So both manufacture and sell in Bombay, because he still believed that he had potential to become, as somebody said, bigger than Birla, a big person like that. So he went to, by 1935 he was in Bombay, and who should he meet in Bombay? 2 more Gaudiya sannyasis who were trying to start a temple in Bombay. And they were having a hard time. It was Sridhar Maharaj and Bhakti Saranga Maharaj. Oh, Bhai Charanaravinda, by now he was initiated. You're very capable Vaishnava, same thing. You're very good with people, and you can fundraise, and you can play mridanga so nicely and speak so nicely. Can you help us start a mutt in Bombay? And so Prabhupada did. Although he was still trying to, devote full time to building his business. And so he must have met them in 34, because by February 35, it was ready to launch, the Bombay Gaudiya Math. And that's where we get the famous Vyasa Puja address from Prabhupada, the universal teacher. It used to be published in every Vyasa Puja book. In the beginning. It is, and it isn't. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So, let's see here. Yeah. So, this is February 35. And he was selected by Charanaravinda to give the keynote address on the Vyasa Puja evening. They had a big program. And you may have read the address. Ladies and gentlemen, our Guru Maharaj, he's not the guru of a sectarian institution, rather he's a Jagat Guru. He was praising Srila Bhaktisiddhanta as not an ordinary thing to be a spiritual master. But even among masters, he was a Jagat Guru. He was a founder Acharya, reviving the whole Gaudiya line there. So that was very pleasing when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta heard about that address, but then even more pleasing
absolutely sentient Taoist book, impersonal calamity, Taoist book.
I was so blissful when I came across this recording of Prabhupada, reading the poem, especially that was the stanza that really captured Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Just see how my disciple knows my mind, knows my heart. And later on, 34 years later, 1969, when the devotees were launching London, Guru Das found the poem in one of the harmonists in the British Museum. And he brought it to Prabhupada, because Prabhupada was in London, he was in England from late August, early September. No, devotees were, but, Prabhupada was there from August, late August, 69, until December 20th, after the launch of Sri Sri Radhalandanishwara, Berry Place Temple. So Guru Das brought the poem to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was amazed. Oh, I thought this was lost. And then Prabhupada read the poem, and then he made a change. He's the origin of book changes, Prabhupada. The change of the poem happened right in the stanza. Can you guess what word he changed?
Moved.
Yes. Now that is, with poetic license, you could sort of say, okay, that's the word. So Prabhupada changed it to removed. That's why you see it both ways. Because Prabhupada, edited that. In 1969, 34 years on from writing that poem, his English had improved. So he knew really the even more precise word was removed. So let's hear it again. It just sort of happened without my setting it up very well.
Absolutely sentient Taoist book, impersonal calamity, Taoist book.
Yeah. So, somehow, this is from Lilamrit, somehow in this simple couplet, Abai had captured the essence of his spiritual master's preaching against the Mayavadis. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta took it as an indication of how well Abai knew the mind of his Gurudev. Abai was delighted when he heard that the couplet was pleasing to his spiritual master. One of Abai's godbrothers compared this verse by Abai to a verse in which Rupa Goswami had expressed the inner thinking of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and had thus moved him to ecstasy. Now here's the blessing. When Srila Bhaktisiddhanta heard about the address and then read the poem, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta would keep a copy of the poem with him, and then when guests come who were kind of interested in what he was in the mission, he would bring out this poem. Just see how my disciple know. This is the essence. If you want to know my mission, this is it. So here's the blessing. All right, John, want to read the blessing?
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta instructed the editor of the Harmonist, whatever he writes, publish it.
That's huge. All of a sudden, everyone knows that Abhay Charanaravinda Das is an intimate, confidential disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And Prabhupada told us I only met my Guru Maharaj 5 or 6 times, but every time I was with him, he wanted to confide something to me. He wanted to speak confidentially. He even insisted I sit on the same seat, the same level with him. And then the godbrothers would criticize, oh, fools rush in, right? Where angels fear to tread. Fools rush in. And then Prabhupada commented, yeah, fool I may have been, but what could I do? He wanted to say something to me, confidential. So that was the first blessing. Okay, so that was February 35. Now in July 1935, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was visiting, he was touring his mutts, he established 64 mutts, and he was touring his recent mutts, and he went to Bombay, where they had just launched, which Prabhupada had helped organize. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was very pleased with what he found in Bombay, where Prabhupada was doing business, and Bhakti Saranga Maharaj, he was the Mahant, he was the head of the mutt. And he praised Bhakti Saranga for, it was very very clean. A lot of literature was being printed, distributed, a lot of guests. So Bhakti Saranga Maharaj said, was it here? Yeah, okay. So how about, want to read?
Bhakti Saranga Maharaj admitted that much of the work was due to Abai Babu, who had collected funds and established the new center. Why is Abai living separately? Bhakti Saranga asked. He should be president of this Bombay center.
So Bhaktisiddhanta famously replied,
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati replied, "It is better that he is living outside your company. He will do. When the time comes, he will do everything himself. You don't have to recommend him."
See, by 1935, this is only, July 35, and then, it's only about a year and a half before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta leaves this world. Prabhupada said, Guru Maharaj, he left early. He was disappointed. He could see what was coming because he was, in the next scene here, it's depicted in the vase, they're walking at Radhakund. That's the next blessing. So, Prabhupada, he wasn't there in July at the much when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said this, but later on he did hear about it. And then Prabhupada told us about what he thought when he heard this. Prabhupada said, and this is in 1977, January, in his last year with us, Prabhupada was telling the story on the train from Bombay to Allahabad, famous long train ride with Jagdish and Ramaswar and different devotees. So Prabhupada said, so after hearing, he said, it is better that he is living a little away from your much, and when time will rise, he'll do everything. He hasn't got to be advised. I could not understand. And then Prabhupada laughs. Why he said like that? That means he was so kind that he expected that I shall do something. And then Prabhupada starts really reflecting on that. And then he says, that was my asset, his blessing. And I was thinking that this mission, it must be done very nicely. Although I was not capable to do anything, I was thinking like that. So desire was there, and maybe blessing was there. Yes. There was no question of my qualification. 13th January 77, Allahabad. So Bhaktisiddhanta, by this time, he actually could see what was going to become of his mission. And you're going to see why in the next. You see the concerned look on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's face. That's at Radhakund in November. So now we're transitioning into the next prophetic blessing. Bhaktisiddhanta could see what was going to become of his mission. So, alright, Jesse.
Deeply concerned, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said to Abai,
Agun Jvalbe.
There will be fire. One day there would be fire in the Calcutta Gaudiya Math, and that fire of party interests would spread and destroy.
Yeah. In this walk, you see there's Prabhupada with M.M. Day, his little son Mathura Mohan, who was beloved by a lot of the Gaudiya Math people. He's walking, and the sannyasis are in back, because again, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wanted to confide something to Abhayacharya Ravinda. And he was lamenting. He was saying, ever since we got this Bagh Bazar temple with all the marble, my leading preachers are fighting over who's going to have the best rooms, the best facilities. They're becoming mad after bricks and stones and marble. They're losing the preaching spirit. So he could see what was coming. And so Prabhupada told us he was disappointed. But he could see also who would be capable of reviving it. So listen to the next one. Okay, Jesse, keep reading here.
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta then said directly to Abai,
Amaricha Chilakichu Vai Karana. Did I butcher it too bad? Bengali, and it means,
I had a desire to print some books. If you ever get money, print books.
There, and then read this.
Standing by Radhakunda and beholding his spiritual master, Abai felt the words deeply enter his own life. If you ever get money, print books.
So Prabhupada told us that. That's where it comes from, and that's the source of the order to print and distribute books. Therefore, Prabhupada says, I am whipping you. Distribute book, distribute book, distribute book. Where is book? Where is book? In as many countries and as many languages as there are in the world, flood the world with books. So it's right here. This is the order. Okay, so yeah. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, so that's the blessing. Third blessing for Srila Prabhupada occurred during the Brajamangala Parikrama that November. Foreseeing the breakup of the Gaudiya mission, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave Prabhupada grave advice just 14 months before his own demise. Blessed by his Guru Maharaj, the founder Acharya of the Gaudiya Math, Prabhupada's desire to better serve his master's mission later moved him to write a letter to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So fast forward from November 35 to December 36, and there's Prabhupada still doing good business in Bombay. And so he wants to do more. Of course, he's already done a lot. He's helped launch 2 temples. He's pleased his Guru Maharaj by speaking and writing. But his missionary spirit is on the rise. And so he writes his Guru Maharaj. How about Maharani? You want to read that?
I am a householder. Sometimes I give monetary help while I cannot give you direct service. Is there any particular service I can do?
Now that's all Prabhupada told us about the letter he wrote, but he told us more about the reply. He wrote that he always shared these things on Bhaktisiddhanta's appearance and disappearance days. He wrote it like the 8th or 9th of December, and then he got a reply right away from Puri, where Prabhupada would say Guru Maharaj was a little indisposed. Actually, he was preparing to leave. So Maharani read the reply.
Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur replied, I'm fully confident that you can explain in English our thoughts and arguments to the people. These will do much good to yourself as well as your audience. I have every hope that you can turn yourself into a very good English preacher if you can serve the mission to inculcate the noble impression of Lord Chaitanya's teachings in the people.
And then, read that.
Abai at once recognized this to be the same instruction he had received at their first meeting in 1922. He took it as a confirmation. There was now no doubt as to the purpose of his life.
Yes. So this final exchange shows why Srila Prabhupada received the most mercy from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He was the most eager to fulfill his master's mission. Yeah. So he got it confirmed right at the end. That seed that he received from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in 1922, now it's confirmed. This is what he is supposed to do. I mean, the order is still there to all of them. If you read Lilamrita, you can Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he only within the last 24 hours of his life, he told them to work conjointly. Just like Prabhupada said to us, your love for me will be shown by how you cooperate, and you make a governing body. This is that's Bhaktivinoda Thakur had conceived of that. And then Siddhanta Saraswati told them to make a governing body. And there was no tape recorder there. Tape recorders, I think, yeah, they were around technically, but there was no. But someone took notes. So we have an address like that to his disciples, like a farewell address. Work conjointly, we have no desire but to be serve the dust of the lotus feet of Sri Rupa Raghunath. So that was there. And then finally, he passed away. Sometimes you read December 31st, you hear Prabhupada say, On the 31st December, he passed away. Actually, he passed away at 5:30 a.m. the next morning, which is technically January 1, 1937, but the Vaishnavas marked the days from the sunrise. So technically, and it was January, so it was still dark. So that's why you see both. Either December 31, 36, or Jan 1, 37. Okay. All right. So, as you know, unfortunately, the Gaudiya mission started to fragment. There were, before Siddhanta Saraswati even passed away, there were already at least two factions jockeying for position to try to take over the assets of the Gaudiya Math, and that's not what Siddhanta Saraswati ordered. He wanted them to cooperate, work together, continue the parampara, keep initiating, but Siddhanta Saraswati in his Vani form was still to be the supreme authority, and they were just supposed to cooperate and work together. Instead, they just fought in the courts. It was a disgrace. And then Prabhupada obviously could see the wisdom of Siddhanta Saraswati, saying it's better he's aloof from the fray and not right inside the mission, and might get distracted or disturbed by what was going on. So Prabhupada told us, I made a cry of grief when Guru Maharaj left, and then it was so discouraging to see all this fighting going on. And of course, those who were trying to take over the mission to be the next big person, you don't try to replace a founder Acharya, you just work together to serve him. And he gave the formula, just form the GBC, which of course is revolutionary. To have GBC supervising gurus, that's not the way it had been done in traditional village India for thousands of years. But this was a big mission. So you need, as Prabhupada told Giriraj Maharaj, organization and intelligence in the service of the mission. So by 1938, Prabhupada gave up in Bombay. And he moved his family from Allahabad, and they all went back to Calcutta. And Prabhupada started a little pharmaceutical production works, Abhay Charan Day, and Sons, although the Sons weren't very helpful. So, and then in 1939, as the fighting was going on inside the Gaudiya Math, his good friend Sridhar Maharaj and Bhakti Saranga Maharaj, they contacted him in Calcutta. They were living in Navadvip, and they said, Prabhu, can you help us get a preaching base in Calcutta? And so Prabhupada said, oh yeah, I have some extra rooms here. And I have some rooms, my family's living in some rooms. I have the pharmaceutical works, I have extra rooms. Why don't you just come and you can maybe pay some nominal fee, to cover the utilities or whatever. And we can have some Bhagavad Gita. So later on, when Sridhar Maharaj was talking about this period, he said, I could see that Swami Maharaj, he was not so much interested in this business anymore. He just wanted to talk about the Bhagavatam. He was really, and it was there in 39 when he started writing his own Gita, Introduction to Gita Upanishad. And they were very impressed by what they read. So they said, Abhay, we want to give you a title. So they gave him the title Bhakti Vedanta. So that's where Bhakti Vedanta came from, Sridhar Maharaj and Bhakti Saranga Maharaj. So then they were calling him Bhakti Vedanta Prabhu. And, by 39, of course, the mission was finished as a cooperative mission. People were just sort of retreating to their little mats. And then the whole world started World War II was coming in. Hitler was rolling into Poland. And so the world was really on fire. So Prabhupada's response by 1944, as the war was still going on, Prabhupada's response to all this conflict was back to Godhead. So, and that's a later issue too, because you see the masthead is there. In the beginning there wasn't even a masthead, but then in the 50s, Prabhupada hired an artist, actually, he gave him the design, and the artist did that. There's Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and there's, so now this is in our BTG, that's where Prabhupada is, in Lord Chaitanya. That's in, 58, yeah. So, let's see here. On to the next Prabhu.
In 1944, while working and living with his family in Calcutta, Srila Prabhupada started Back to Godhead magazine in English.
Mm-hmm. Launched near the end of World War II, Srila Prabhupada's BTG offered the war-weary world spiritual solutions to material problems. After the war, with India's independence from Britain imminent, Prabhupada thought of engaging India's hero, Mahatma Gandhi, in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's mission. Yeah, so Prabhupada, of course, had been a follower of Gandhi's in his youth, and by then Gandhi was a big international hero with his non-violence, non-cooperation, and Prabhupada actually thought of, and Gandhi, he always credited his potency to the Bhagavad Gita, although as Prabhupada told us, Gandhi didn't really understand the Gita. He took it as some metaphor. The Pandavas represent the senses, and Krishna this, but still the world loved Gandhi, and the world didn't know Prabhupada. So in much later actually, after Prabhupada started ISKCON, he confirmed that he wanted to engage Gandhi in the mission. When he was interviewed in the 70s by Trans India magazine. By then the Indians were all over the place because they got their independence in 47, and in 65 America opened up the immigration scene, as we saw, so they could come. So by then there were so many Indians that they had their own Trans India magazine in New York. So Prabhupada said to the interviewer, "Yes, I wanted to start this movement from India." This is around the time of the first New York Rath Yatra in 76, when Prabhupada was there. I wanted to start this movement in India, and I even requested Mahatma Gandhi that, Mahatmaji, you have got some respect all over the world. You are known as a great student of Bhagavad Gita. Now you have got your Swaraj, independence. The Britishers have gone away. Let us preach Bhagavad Gita together. My letter," and then Prabhupada said, "My letter might have reached him or not reached him, but then he was killed." So the letter was written in July 47 from Kanpur, and then on January 30, 1948, Naturam Godse, a Hindu extremist who thought Gandhi was being soft on Muslims, because Gandhi wanted India united and everybody live in peace. But the Britishers, who are expert in divide and conquer, their parting shot, after being in India for 200 years, was pitting the Muslims against the Hindus, expertly, politically. And so there was so much rancor that when India got its independence, of course that was partition. India shrunk, and then the Muslims got Pakistan, right? And then later East Pakistan, Bangladesh, that was another debacle. And in the migration from India to Pakistan and from Pakistan to India, there was a bloodbath because the Britishers had created such bad feeling between Hindus and Muslims, whereas they used to live in peace. Prabhupada said we had Muslim friends, and they used to come to Janmashtami, and we would go to their things. And so, yeah. So Gandhi was assassinated Jan 30, 1948. But even in death, Prabhupada wanted to engage Gandhi. Because you can see, Prabhupada's, his sense of mission is on the rise, more and more and more, but the Gaudiya Math is not functioning anymore as a united group of people. But Prabhupada, he's still carrying the torch, carrying the flame in his heart. So first of all was BTG, and then when Gandhi was assassinated, what Prabhupada did was he started writing these letters he got one out to, let's see, this one is to, I have excerpts of Prabhupada's letter to Gandhi, but it's getting on, so I'm just going to read you. What Prabhupada did was, since Gandhi's favorite inspirational book was the Gita, Prabhupada started writing letters to the government saying, look, if you really want to honor Gandhi, don't just make, as Prabhupada called it, a dead stone statue where pigeons will relieve themselves. I have a whole scheme, and Prabhupada called it the Gita Nagari. This is the first face actually Prabhupada put on his movement, the Gita Nagari, the village where the Bhagavad Gita is sung and lived. And actually I happened to be the one to find this essay when Lilamrita was starting to be compiled in, when did I find it? Yeah, it was in 79, after Prabhupada passed in November 77, and then Tatsut Maharaj started in 78 researching, and then I got to go to Gita Nagari for 1 month in 79, take a break from the BBT indexing. And I was going through these files that had come from LA, from the archives, when the archives were still kind of forming in LA. And they had gotten some of Prabhupada's pre-USA papers, although Prabhupada had told Guru Das and Jamuna to burn them, to throw them all out. And some of them they just couldn't, they didn't have the heart to do that. So some of those papers survived. And the preaching papers. So right in the files, in typewritten copy, I came across this essay on the conception of the Gita Nagari. And there I was in Gita Nagari farm, reading this thing. And then I brought it to Satsuma Maharaj. I said, look at this, Maharaj. And back in the 40s, Prabhupada talking about Gita Nagari. But it was his first conception of ISKCON. It was the mission. And Prabhupada said, yes, he was saying to the Dr. Sardar Patel, who was the Deputy Prime Minister right under Nehru. He said, look, you can collect funds, and then we can start a whole community. This is the real glory of India. We could actually show the world India's true glory, suppressed by the British for so long, and now we can share with them our spiritual solutions to the world's problems. And in the Gita Nagari, it's like a Varnashram village, but then we're also going to share with the world our wisdom. So we're going to go out, and Prabhupada started talking about radio vans. I guess that was the cutting edge technology, cars had been around. And now it sounds like the beginning of CB radio or something. We're going to communicate with radio vans. And he started talking about how we can use astrology, and we can use Ayurveda. And of course they ignored the whole thing. I'm sorry we're not interested, because Nehru was interested in just making India an industrial power, enter the modern world, no longer be a beggar nation. Prabhupada said Nehru and his father used to come into my pharmacy in Allahabad, and when they did, they always bought Western medicine. They never bought, because Prabhupada was carrying both, Western, homeopathic, Ayurvedic. Their total faith was in Western, anything Western. So they ignored Prabhupada, and Prabhupada, in the late 40s, he had stopped doing BTG because he was so busy trying to do something. And Prabhupada was a spiritual opportunist. When Gandhi was assassinated, he wanted to somehow use this cataclysmic event as a catalyst to launch his mission. But they didn't listen to him. So he went back to BTG, and also he was still doing his pharmaceuticals, although he was getting more and more disappointed with that because his family wouldn't help him. There's a famous letter where Prabhupada told his best servant, Gauranga Prabhu, because Prabhupada had an opportunity to really launch the business big time in Kanpur. Yeah. And he was going to get a building dirt cheap, which had all kinds of facilities and machinery. And he wanted Gauranga to come from Calcutta. This is in 1945. But the family wouldn't let him, because he was a good servant and they wanted him. And it would have been better for them too, because if Prabhupada could really get the business to take off, then they would even have a better living standard. But, Radharani Devi wasn't interested in that. So Prabhupada wrote this letter, you can read it, 1945, in pre-USA writings, letters. I am no longer interested in these people. They're not even interested materially, what to speak of the mission. They're not interested in that. When Prabhupada was initiated, his wife didn't even go. A brother and sister of Prabhupada's went, but his wife didn't go. And Prabhupada wanted home programs, and she would just retire with the kids into the back rooms. And she was nice. She was a pious lady, but she had no interest in the mission, being part of the mission. I watched the Memory series. I just saw Prabhupada, Abhiram Prabhu reminiscing about his time with Prabhupada. And because he was Prabhupada's nurse in the last days, Prabhupada would say a lot of things to him. And out of the blue, Abhiram said, Prabhupada just said to him, my wife's asset was her patience. She was very patient. Because I was very haughty, and very impatient with her. And she tolerated a lot of my, harsh words. But what can I do? That's my nature, he was saying. He was just saying this to Abhiram. This is my nature. I can be very, how sometimes we say, oh, Prabhupada's so heavy. So he said he inherited his mother's spirit and nature, whereas my father, Prabhupada said, he was very lenient. He would always give me whatever I wanted. So anyway, so it was a very uneasy marriage they were in, for 36 years. So again, this letter, you can see Prabhupada. And this is where Prabhupada first started having his dreams. Guru Maharaj started coming to him. Please, Prabhupada said, please, he said to me, please come out of the family, take sannyas. But then Prabhupada said, I was horrified, I couldn't countenance, I couldn't even imagine living like Sridhar Maharaj and Bhakti Saranga Maharaj are so austere. So anyway, so Prabhupada, he started publishing BTG again when the government ignored him. And he was still maintaining the family, although he said to Gauranga, I'm not interested in even maintaining these people. What's the use? They're useless. Even materially, they're not helping. So with that, he was still traveling, trying to sell pharmaceuticals, and he came to Jhansi, where there was a doctor who he could work with. The doctor would diagnose the patient's ills, and then right next to him at the table there was a Bhai Babu prescribing, and the doctor would prescribe, and then Prabhupada would sell them the remedies, the pharmaceuticals. But Prabhupada couldn't resist, the doctor said, couldn't resist, when he was giving the patients the medicines, preaching to the patients. Actually, the real medicine is Harinam, and Bhagavad Gita. So after this 2-week stint with the doctor in Jhansi, the doctor said, Bhai Babu, I can see you're not just a pharmacist, you're a preacher. And right here in Jhansi, we have this Ayurvedic medical college. So they're very interested in Vedic, anything Vedic, all things Vedic, not just medicine. I think you would have an audience. If you came back here, you would have an audience in these Ayurvedic students. So Prabhupada took him up on it, he came back, and, he, as you know, if you've read the Lilamrita, he found some rather receptive people in those students, especially one student, Prabhakar Mishra, who told Bhai Babu that, I'm staying in a place for free where the executor of the land, he's just supervising this land, this estate, which has been vacant for years. And it's called Radha Bhavan, because this fellow, he had made a whole place for his wife, Radha. But he likes spiritual people, and I think he would love you. So why don't you, I'm going to introduce you to him. He said, all right. He said, sure. Prabhupada said, sure. So they went, they met the fellow, and the fellow really liked Bhai Babu. Okay, let's see here. And eventually, Prabhakar Mishra became Prabhupada's first disciple, Acharya Prabhakar. And Prabhupada gained access to this estate. It was an estate with buildings, which Prabhupada began to use as a base for his mission. With the estate executive's permission, Prabhupada transformed the property into the League of Devotees, right? You see the picture, you see the big sign, League of Devotees. And then Prabhupada canvassed for his mission. The mission was in his heart. I mean, there wasn't anything manifest. But then he's meeting people, and he's getting that appears to be a donation, because the person sort of hinted, you know, if you get a lot of action here and the preaching is going well, I might be able to deed you the property. There was a hint of that. And then Prabhupada took an ad out of the local Jhansi paper. Wanted candidates from any nationality to qualify themselves as real Brahmins for preaching the teachings of Bhagavad Gita for all practical purposes throughout the world. Prabhupada said he never thought big, right? Later on, Harishari said he was in Ranadamodar with Prabhupada, visiting the temple, and he found some old papers there that they hadn't found before, and it was a League of Devotees papers. So Harishari said, "What's this, Prabhupada? League of Devotees? What is that? What was that?" And Prabhupada laughed. He said, "Oh, that was just me." You know, he said, for preaching all over the world, but that's how Prabhupada always thought. Deserving, this is still the end here. Deserving candidates will be provided with free boarding and lodging. Apply A.C. Bhaktivedanta, founder and secretary of the League of Devotees, Jhansi. So then on May 16th, 1953, there was a launch of the League of Devotees, because he had a regular, listening. They weren't really serious disciples. They were in the Ayurvedic medical school, and they were getting their careers together, their qualification. But at least they were interested in what Prabhupada had to say. And here's something from the charter of the League. Here's the launch. It was on Janmashtami? No, it was May 1952. And let's see here. 53. On May 16th, 1953, Abai held a grand opening celebration for the League of Devotees, with continuous readings, kirtan, and prasadam distribution from early morning until night. The buildings were decorated with leaves, flowers, and many earth and water pots. In the evening, when attendance was the greatest, Abai lectured from the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita on Raja Guhya Yoga. We know it as the most confidential knowledge. Prabhakar Mishra conducted a fire sacrifice, and several Brahmins chanted mantras from Brahma Samhita. Guests received a 16-page prospectus. Prospectus is inviting people to take part in the League, invest in the League, be a supporter of the League, containing Abai's essay on the need for the League and an excerpt from the charter explaining its goals. It was signed Om Tat Sat, Abhoy Charavindo Bhaktivedanta, founder and secretary, very Bengali. So here's an excerpt from the charter of the League. It sounds like a forerunner of the purposes of ISKCON that Prabhupada incorporated later, which we'll take a look at in the next lesson. Okay, who would like to read? Okay.
To propagate spiritual knowledge systematically for checking the imbalance of life to the whole race of India and the world over, with a view to educate the people in general in the techniques of spiritual life.
Sounds like a first draft of the first purpose, right, of ISKCON. Okay, now, so the League's land and buildings, originally a gift promise, turned into a purchase offer. Because what happened was, the governor of UP, Mr. Munshi, his wife was an activist for approving the lot of ladies, which is still a big issue in India. Leelavati Munshi, ironically, one of the people listening to Prabhupada in Jhansi, a lady, who liked Abhay Babu, but when she also liked the property, that Radha Bhavan, and she got an idea in her head that this would be a good headquarters for a Jhansi chapter of something called the Mahila Samhita Sangha, which means a ladies' upliftment society. So she began putting pressure on the estate executor. You know, if you don't give this property to us or sell it to us, it's going to be very hard for you to renew your cinema license. Because the way this guy was making his money, he had a couple of movie houses in town. And so she put political pressure on him to do that. She could stop, his income if he didn't do her bidding. And she even wrote Prabhupada, Abhay Babu, and she said, you have this league of devotees, but it's not going anywhere, and you should just move on and let us use it. Prabhupada said no, because he was thinking, this is the beginning of my mission, right? It's for the first time in 3 dimensions. He had something going. BTG was one thing; it was a magazine, which was hard enough to distribute. But now we actually have some at least half serious listeners, and he has a property. So let's see here. Supported by the governor's wife, the group put political pressure on the estate's executor to sell to them or lose his business license. The governor's wife asked Prabhupada to vacate the premises to allow their Sangha to purchase the estate. Determined to make a headquarters for worldwide preaching, that's how Prabhupada's thinking, for the whole world. So here's what Prabhupada did. He wasn't sure what to do. Because it wasn't, so happening, but it was something. And now he was getting, political pressure from the governor's wife. Determined to make a headquarters for worldwide preaching, Prabhupada brought in an old friend, senior godbrother, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, for consultation. Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj advised Prabhupada that fairly remote Jhansi was not worth a legal fight. So he did come. He brought a couple of brahmacharis. And after a couple of days he said, Abhay Babu or Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, Guru Maharaj always wanted us to preach in the big cities. This Jhansi is a little, we would say, a backwater. It's like Picayune. You're not kind of living a vanaprastha lifestyle now to engage in litigation. It's not. Lord Chaitanya has much bigger plans for you, I know. So Prabhupada took his advice and eventually did vacate. But before, how do I put it here? So Prabhupada finally left Jhansi and went with Keshav Maharaj to Mathura. Now in the next slide we'll see how the Lord was also moving Prabhupada on in ashram. Before this happened, when the estate executor quoted him a high price to buy it, it was a real, it was inflated price, but Prabhupada said, well, if this is what it's going to take to secure this property, I know how to make money with pharmaceuticals. So he temporarily left Jhansi before he finally left it for good. He went back to Calcutta to crank up his pharmaceutical works. But when he went back to Calcutta in 54, the famous Tea or Me, the end of the marriage happened. So, yes, Srila Prabhupada delivers an ultimatum to his wife. So during his Jhansi years, on a trip home to Calcutta to raise funds for the League, an incident involving Prabhupada and his wife spelled the end of his householder life. Here is Srila Prabhupada's account. So this is the source of the Tea or Me. It's Prabhupada. Quote, I wanted as much as possible to get her to work with me in spreading Krishna consciousness, to get her help. But she was very determined. She would not help me in spreading Krishna consciousness. And she was very attached to drinking tea. In other words, Radharani Devi, although she was a pious lady and tolerant of her husband's nature, which could be very heavy, she became hooked on the British tea, the chai, which they did push, and they got the Indians all hooked on chai to this day. It's a big thing. And she was very attached to drinking tea. I was always telling her not to drink tea because I wanted to have a nice Vaishnava family. So although I was repeatedly telling her, this time I finally said, now you have to choose between me or tea. Either the tea goes or I go. So she replied, give up drinking tea or give up my husband. well, I will have to give up my husband then. Of course, Prabhupada said, she thought I was joking. Okay, so who would like to read? This is it, this is the last straw. You like to read? Okay, here it is.
While Bai was out, his wife took his worshipable Bhagavatam to the market and traded it for tea biscuits. At first he felt depressed, but then a wave of absolute resolution passed over him. His family life was finished.
Prabhupada told us, I thought, even one daughter wasn't married yet. I had proposed a suitable husband, they rejected it, and this happened. And then Prabhupada said, what's done is done. God will take care. He turned on his heels, walked out. And what did they think? Oh, he's always coming and going, he'll be back. He never came back. Never. Where did he go? He went to South Calcutta to Paramahansa Maharaj's little Gaudiya mutt. And he said, yes, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu came to my mutt, and for 2 weeks he was pacing the mutt, chanting at the top of his lungs, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Releasing 36 years of the Grihastha ashram. 1918 and 1954, finished. So, yeah. And then, so with family life, so he left. Then he went back to Jhansi, and then the whole thing happened with Lilavati Munshi, and then Keshav Maharaj said, look, why don't you just come with me for now to Mathura, where he had his Keshavji Gaudiya Mutt, and just help me with the mutt, and by and by Lord Chaitanya will reveal what he wants you to do, because you have a lot to do. You have you're a great Vaishnava, etc. So with family life behind him, Prabhupada was now free to develop his mission. After he dropped Jhansi, he tried to revive BTG in Delhi, but found little interest in spiritual revolution among his materially ambitious countrymen. Living in near poverty, Prabhupada had little choice but to try to work with his godbrothers in the mutts of the fragmented Gaudiya mission. Since Prabhupada's householder days, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had been coming to him in dreams, inviting him to take sannyas and increase his preaching. But when he approached some sannyasi godbrothers, now he was ready for it, because the family life was finished and there was nothing else left to do. But when he approached some sannyasi godbrothers about awarding him sannyas, their response was cool. They would say, oh, well, first you help us with our mutt. And he tried. But his preaching spirit was too much for them. They were just sort of maintaining, and he wanted to expand. And they'd always give him, we could say, a pink slip. Oh, you're a favorite son of our Guru Maharaj, you're too much for us. Better you do something on your own. The response was cool until he met his old friend, Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, where he actually did take sannyas. So let's look at that. So this is September 17th, 1959, on the right, of course, of our Prabhupada. Bhaktivedanta Prabhu became A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. On the left, on the other side of Keshav Maharaj, who looks rather like Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, is one Muni, Bhaktivedanta Muni Maharaj. Now he was like in his 90s. So he was taking sannyas basically to leave the world. And Prabhupada, by contrast, he was taking sannyas to go into the world. He was openly saying, I'm going to the West now. He's 63 years old, and he's got the order since, confirmed in 1936. So, let's see here. Yeah. Okay. Now, this is in 59. Funny story Prabhupada told us. Oh, no, it was his dear godbrother, Akinchana Krishna Das Babaji Maharaj, who by the end of his life was in the Babaji order and was always famous for walking around playing the drum and laughing. Whenever anybody would ask him a question, he would just say, Hare Krishna, hit the drum and laugh. And that was his answer to everything. So Babaji Maharaj said, I was present at Swami Maharaj's sannyas. And so Keshav Maharaj was presiding, and then Narayan Maharaj, he was his disciple, and he was doing the fire ceremony. And then I was playing the drum. I was doing kirtan. And but sometimes I get carried away, and I would just chant kind of loud, and then Narayan Maharaj would, say, keep the volume down, right? But then every time Narayan Maharaj did that, Swami Maharaj, he just went like this. on the slide, he would say, no, raise it. And so this went on, up and down. And Babaji Maharaj said, when he did that, I knew he was going to spread Nam all over the world like he said he was going to. I knew that. After Prabhupada passed, he told that little story. Now, in 1968, this is 59, sannyas, right? So 9 years later, after Prabhupada had launched ISKCON, it was October 68, Prabhupada is in Seattle, and he's trying to encourage the fledgling devotees in Seattle. And then he gets a telegram that his sannyas guru has passed away. And it's all of a sudden you hear, it's very grave. And Prabhupada, he starts telling about his sannyas guru, because he's the one that really helped him. He moved him into the sannyas order. So here's a recording, and you're going to hear Prabhupada say a couple of things that you won't necessarily hear him say. They might seem odd, but it's all in the mood of glorifying his Guru Maharaj and his sannyas guru, Keshav Maharaj. And it's kind of emotional. You hear a lot of emotion in Prabhupada's voice.
I was sitting alone in Vrindavan, like my god brother. He insisted Bhaktivedanta Prabhu. Not he insisted me, practically my spiritual master insisted me through him that you accept. Because without accepting this now sort of life, nobody can become a preacher. So unwillingly I accept.
Is there anything unusual there you heard?
He says, I'm
You
willing
have to
to.
accept the renounced order to be a preacher.
Yes, that's not what Prabhupada preached. You can preach in any order of life. Right? Grihe tako vane tako. Yeah, you can preach in any order. And unwillingly I accepted. By then he was trying to do what his Guru Maharaj was telling him to do in his dreams. But he was trying to glorify them. He was glorifying them. So he took sannyas, and then he said he got gored by a bull. And he thought, what is this? I've taken sannyas, I've been knocked down now? But he picked himself up and he just kept going, and then two friends, one was an army captain and one was a librarian, they both told him the same thing. What did they tell him?
Print books, not magazines.
Yes, people easily throw away this BTG you're trying to do. But they don't so easily throw away books. Why don't you write books? So, and then, now this is my inference, but at that point, Prabhupada, not long after that, started conceiving of his life's work in terms of books, the Bhagavatam, because in the 1930s, before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had let those preachers go to England and Germany, they had to have a book, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, remember that book? And so Prabhupada thought, I need literature too. So then he hit on this English translation of the Bhagavatam. But before he did the Bhagavatam, his first book was Easy Journey. And the way that happened was he was still doing a little BTG, and the transition from BTG to the Bhagavatam was he started serializing a book in Back to Godhead, because he read a piece in the paper that Russians had discovered antimatter. And everybody's looking at Russian scientists, right? Because since October 57 they put up this Sputnik, so everybody's looking at the Russians. And so Prabhupada wrote Easy Journey, which is the Vaishnava understanding of so-called antimatter. It was spirit. It was brilliant preaching. That was the first book I read, and I was fascinated by the idea of anti-material particle, the soul, anti-material planetary systems, the spiritual world. So, and then he started doing Bhagavatam. And in so Prabhupada did that in and then he got reviews from scientists who they were reading, these serial entries. And then, so when Prabhupada finally published it as a book, Easy Journey to Other Planets, he had favorable reviews from scientists right in the book. He knew how to do it like they do today, the same thing they do today. Let's see here. At the same time, Prabhupada began his English translation with elaborate commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam, quote, the cream of Vedic literature, because he was living in Delhi and he was visiting Vrindavan for inspiration. So when he went to the Radha Damodar temple, which Jiva Goswami had founded, the Mahant there, one Gaurachand Goswami, at the invitation of Gaurachand Goswami, Prabhupada moved from Delhi to Vrindavan's Radha Damodar temple. Because the Gaurachand said, Bhaktivedanta Swami, I've got some vacant rooms here, and if you just give me some nominal donation, I'll let you have if you can raise some funds to fix them up. They needed renovation. So Prabhupada raised 5,000 rupees, which is quite a sum for a poor renunciant. But he inspired people. And I think Prabhupada, for only 5 rupees a month, he drove a hard bargain, right? He got the rooms. And then he eventually moved to Vrindavan. Taking inspiration from his Guru Maharaj and the 6 Goswamis, Prabhupada began preparing the spiritual literature he would take with him to the West. And there is not the typewriter, but that was the kind of typewriter Prabhupada was working on. Did anybody ever, I guess you were too young, but when I learned how to type, I learned on a manual typewriter also. But it wasn't like that. It wasn't as...
I did also.
Did you? Okay. Yeah, so this kind of typewriter, we have a one like it in the Hawaii temple, under glass, Corona, before they even merged with Smith. To type with that typewriter, you've got to mash it. There's no question of touch typing. And even, I learned on I forget, it starts with a K. Anyway, you could touch type on it because the keys were a little easier to hit. So right in the preface, the original preface to his Indian Bhagavatams, Prabhupada is pleading with his Western readers to overlook the mistakes. So let's see who would like to read. Gokul.
Our capacity of presenting the matter in adequate language, especially a foreign language, will certainly fail, and there may be many literary discrepancies in spite of our honest attempt to present it in the proper way. But we are sure that with our faults in this connection...
Okay, you see, you stumbled there because that's Indian English. Prabhupada's doing Indian English read in the plea. With our all faults. We don't say that. We say with all of our faults, with all our faults. But he's doing his L1, we would say in linguistics, is interfering with his new language, L2 English, with our all faults in this connection.
Yeah, I didn't even see the word.
Yeah, now if Prabhu read it, he probably would have read it right, because it would have sounded right. With our all faults in this connection.
The seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration, and the leaders of the society will still accept this on account of its being an honest attempt for glorifying the Almighty Great, so much now badly needed.
And there's Prabhupada in 64, after he had finished the third volume, distributing it to the then Prime Minister, Lal Bahadur Shastri, who had taken over for Nehru, And he was actually a Shastri, this Prime Minister, whereas Nehru, he didn't even know any, he didn't want to know Shastri. Nehru once visited America, went to Harvard, the students asked him what his favorite shloka of Bhagavad Gita was, he didn't even know any shlokas. He just wore a hat, a funny hat, so that was his distinguishing characteristic. See, there's a Nehru hat over there. That was from Gandhi's days. So, but Shastri, when Shastri came in, he knew Shastra, and he very much appreciated Prabhupada's Bhagavatams. Doing everything himself, writing, editing, buying paper, proofreading the galleys, Prabhupada labored intensively to publish Bhagavatam's first canto in 3 volumes. With all 3 volumes published by 1964, the stage was set for Prabhupada to execute his mission. And elsewhere we're going to get into, well, actually right now we're going to get into a little bit of what happened on the ship in 65. But once he had a sponsor in the U.S., Gopal Agarwal, Prabhupada still had to satisfy many officials to receive the required documents to leave India and enter America. With no money to pay for the trip, Prabhupada convinced pious shipping magnate Sumati Morarji, whom Prabhupada had met in Bombay in the 30s when he was trying to drum up business. Yeah, and she was very impressed. Sometimes he would, hold Gita class at her place. And she was a big person. She was one of the first lady industrialists in India. She was quite a lady, Sumati Morarji. She convinced her to sponsor his passage, although she didn't want to. Swamiji, you will die. My secretaries are all telling me, and I think so too. And he almost did. Here is Srila Prabhupada recalling his dream to preach in America. So Prabhupada told us this in a morning walk in March 76 in Mayapur.
I planned that I must go to America. Wherever they go to London, I did not go to London. I was simply dreaming how to go to New York. I was thinking whether I can go this way, through Tokyo, Japan, or that way, which way is cheaper. And I was targeting to New York. All right. Sometimes I was dreaming that I come to New York.
So we all know on Friday the 13th, the luckiest day in the history of the world, August 65, that Jaladuta ship inched away from the pier, and some 35, 36, 37 days later, Prabhupada survived a couple of heart attacks, and now the way we end the lesson, this is my favorite ending, we're going to hear a song. Maybe you've heard the song from the late great Jamini, who passed away this last year. Sad day for us, but she was ready. She was ready. She was fired up. It was Mangalada. He was having a hard time, but he finally took courage from his wife's attitude, and he survived. So she wrote this famous song. I mean, it's famous to me. Jamini told me about a year ago that I sing this every day. This is my song to Prabhupada. It's called O Atlantic. Have you heard this? She did a demo in 2011. It was kind of a folky version, just simple acoustic guitar. Then in 2015, when they had the centennial, or the 50 year of Prabhupada's leaving Calcutta. Is that right? Yeah, 50 in 2015, and then in 2016 when the 50th of the founding ISKCON. She did a more orchestral version of the song. So here now you're going to hear Jamini sing O Atlantic.
Prabhupada boarded the Jaladuta today. He's heading into the west without delay. His books are in their trunks just like gold. He
The end.
Yeah.
It's after 9. I'm willing to stay longer if you want. But we do have that last day Monday.
You can get all of the songs right in YouTube.
I have the song. If anybody wants the song, I'll give it to you. That's the first time I've heard that song since she passed away. It was very. She passed through Tucson just not long before she passed away, and she looked really bad physically, but she was so fired up.
They had left California and went to Tucson.
They were on their way from Texas. Or maybe it was all the way from Wheeling. Anyway, they were on their way west. And they were going to do farmers markets, with their vehicle, that stage vehicle that opens up. Then she got really sick right on the border. And they had to stay there for a while, and then they were able to make it over to San Diego, where she was in a hospice kind of situation, like Ladali and Mahabar's place near the temple. So, yeah, that's what she told me. And when she passed, when they passed through Tucson in December, that's when she said, "I sing this to Prabhupada every day." I said, "Well, you got to come back and sing it for us." "Oh yeah, we will." But Krishna had other plans. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to identify the seeding and sprouting of Prabhupada's mission's creeper, recount 3 major blessings Prabhupada received from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta in 1935, recount early manifestations of Prabhupada's mission in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, describe Prabhupada's sea voyage to the west. It was actually in the Red Sea where the heart attacks came. He had just entered the Red Sea. It wasn't...
Oh, it was in the Red Sea.
It was in the Red Sea. It was earlier because the Atlantic, which is usually very ferocious, Captain Pandya said, "Oh, Swamiji, we've never seen the Atlantic like this. It was like a lake, like glass. You must come back with us, Swamiji." They were convinced that this holy man was responsible for the peaceful seas. And Captain Pandya bought a set of the Bhagavatams, gave him $20. And that was really the only exchangeable currency he had, because he had 40 rupees. You couldn't use 40 rupees in America. So, yeah, the next lesson, we're going to see, I have a little transition. Yeah, before we do the lesson, we're going to look at the poem Prabhupada wrote, Markine Bhagavat Dharma, Teaching Krishna Consciousness in America. We're going to see it in a very special way, see it, hear it. So I won't tell you any more. And then we'll go into the lesson, which is called His ISKCON branch. We're continuing with the plant metaphors, his mission's roots, his ISKCON branch. So I don't know if you want to just save the questions for Monday, the 21st, because it's kind of late. But Hare Krishna, there isn't much to say after that song. I even like the old version better because she sounds like Buffy St. Marie singing playing an acoustic guitar, and it's just very mellow. And there's there is video, there's slides.
I couldn't understand the latter and the picture of the song. That's, all the pictures.
The ladder?
Matched the song, but there was one picture with this ladder going down a cliff or something.
Oh, that's kind of... That's disaster.
Disaster. They said the path of disaster.
Right.
I think it was a rope bridge that had collapsed.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah. I forget the lyric too that goes with it.
It had to do with a path.
Puts the souls on Calamity's trail.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, and then that was the Calamity, some bridge broke. But that probably could be improved. Anyway.
Can I make a controversial comment?
Sure. I've heard it all.
I hate to say something, contradictory to Srila Prabhupada and defend the British, but the whole petition thing, I mean, Jenna was extremely insistent on it, and the Congress Party had a very difficult time, changing the thing. Eventually, that's what the British, decided to do.
Yes, Jinnah was for it. He was Muslim, wasn't he?
Yeah, that was his whole thing.
Yeah, that was his whole thing.
If we keep it one country, we're going to be a minority, and the Hindus are going to run the show.
Right. So Jinnah was, Prabhupada said, Jinnah was one of the ones that betrayed Gandhi. Yeah. So, but it's true. The British did want partition also because, if you can't keep it, you're going to give them a parting shot, right? Left them with their... The British were expert in managing these cities, but they knew the Indians couldn't, so they just left them with the same... They actually put Hindus in charge of Muslim areas and Muslims in charge of Hindu areas before the partition, just to create this bad feeling between the Hindus and the Muslims. They were rascals. Yeah. Should we take Prasad? Yeah.
So I did have something real quick that I'd like to show. It's this video that is visiting visiting devotee family. Their son is an expert videographer. Anyway, so he just sent me the final version of the video that he compiled up in the Talavana.
It's only a couple minutes.
Yeah, it's like 2 minutes 20 seconds or something, and I've got it on my computer. I can just switch to HDMI cables and.
There you go. Special local bonus.
Yes. Yeah, I literally just got the final thing this morning. So.
You need a mic?
No. It'll show up on the screen here in just a moment.
So this was recently made?
Yeah. He took the footage, I guess, it was 2 months ago or something now?
Maybe a little bit longer.
Maybe longer than that. Really nice family, and yeah, he's a very expert.
There's a big picture. There's a picture of New Talavana in the mobile home I was staying in.
Yeah.
Who took that? Who took the picture?
It was shot by a company we had hired from an airplane.
Okay, so it had to be an airplane because it was high. There's no high places here.
Yeah, bear with me just 1 second while I get everything.
Okay. Any questions while we get it together?
Behind the house.
No, that's the knife. Sorry, knife.
Jesse tells me some of you have already asked for the notes.
Yes.
Did you send them?
I haven't yet, no. Just let me know this morning. Anybody wants the notes, I can email them to you also. So
make sure you email me the notes.
Okay.
Same here.
All right. Yeah. After this is finished, this video, just come up specifically and let me know, and I'll do it here in the temple before y'all leave. Okay. Let's just double check the sound. Okay, great.
Our protection and God comes. Visitors says,
This will be posted to our YouTube later on and shared on our social media, so keep an eye out.
Mercy upon my desire is that you also grant me a residence. Let me grow sweet as God and done. Thus within my vision I will always know full past down to the bride and vision.
our protection, that's our pride. Everything is not our protection. And do they say, cow is for eating and you are protected.
Yeah.